throw this one out. This kind of playing off of the AP poll, which was just a slight detour from the coaches poll. Ohio State up a notch ahead of Alabama at number 3 with a couple first place votes from the media. And of course, Georgia won, Michigan 2. You got to go
Ohio State
back.
had one first place vote, I think, in the AP poll. It was from a writer in Texas. Okay. I don't recall his name. He also, I joked that my two of my better friends on the beat, Kyle Rowland and David Briggs, work for the Toledo Blade, and one of them may or may not have an AP poll vote because they cover Toledo and Bowling Green pretty closely up there. And I joked that, that one of them had to have put the Buckeyes number 1 on their ballot, because they're both OSU grads. And then we got on the website and we saw it was a guy from Texas, and he had Toledo coincidentally at number 25. So that guy, he deserves a lot of credit for repping the state of Ohio with his AP poll vote. It is interesting. If it falls that way, it would be Georgia versus Alabama, presumably in the Sugar Bowl, and a Rose Bowl of Ohio State versus Michigan. How cool would that be? So I guess we can all root for that. Kind of an SEC Big Ten lockout, portend of the future. I did a radio show this morning on Portland, Oregon radio. They asked me, what do you think about Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten? I said, well, I'm 55 years old. I'm not averse to change, but this is a whole hell of a lot of change. You talk about now being in conference with schools on the West Coast and playing in an 18-team conference where there's no way everybody could play each other. Like, what does it even mean to be a Big Ten champion? You could have 3 teams tie for first place at 9-0, and you're telling one of those teams, on that fateful Saturday evening at 8 p.m. that, sorry, bro, you didn't make it. You're not going to Indianapolis or wherever they're having the championship game this year. You're still in the 12-team playoff probably, but you're not going to be a Big Ten champion. And it just it doesn't make any sense. I know Kevin had a long-winded explanation for it on the show 2 weeks ago, and I just kind of came around to the fact that they've eliminated the Pac-12. The SEC and the Big Ten are already squawking about having 6 automatic berths. That's too many. It's too many. Can't have that. And, there'll be no Pac-12 in 2 years. So I don't know what they're going to do, regarding those automatic berths. And really this was what this was all about, was to cut down the number of automatic berths to make sure that 4 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC teams make the playoff every year, or at minimum 3. And I guess somebody will have to show me the math on that. Like why this was so important that they did that, and kind of changed the course of college football, for the rest of time because of it.
Well, I mean, the Big Ten didn't force anybody's hand. It's the lack of leadership in the Pac-12 is what doomed them from the previous administration to the current administration holding out, saying no to the same money that was offered to the Big 12, and everybody is lauding the Big 12 for saving themselves and for securing their financial future. And the Pac-12 could have done that before then, and George Kliavkoff said no. And so, the leadership there has kind of forced, I guess, everybody's hands. But I still think with the scheduling of the 18 teams, I think you can still do one protected rival, and then you go through it's like the 1-8-8 plan, basically, where you have one protected rival, you play 8 teams home and away the next 2 years, and then the other 8 the next 2 years. So you would still be able to get everybody to each campus within a 4-year period. So I'm wondering if that's what they will do. But it's a very big thing. It is something we're all going to have to get used to. And the regionality of it, I think, will eventually come back once we are all into a super conference, and then you can go back to being regional. And we're going to break everything down and tear down all of these walls before we can start putting them back up when it's just a higher level, a more exclusive club of FBS, Power 5, whatever it is. And then we can get back to a Big Ten, a Pacific 8, whatever, where that's when you can get back to, now we play these 7 regional teams and then also 2 of these teams and 2 of these teams. And what does that do for the group of 5 or whatever is remaining? Go have your own national championship. Also try to get into the, I don't know if they're going to have an opportunity to get into the playoffs once there's a separation, probably not. And hopefully there's TV money left over for the group of leftovers at that point. But I'm okay with them revisiting this current playoff thing in terms of the automatic qualifiers, because there's no Pac-12 anymore. So that has to happen. Now, in terms of the number of automatic qualifiers, I'd like to see more people have opportunity to get in. Like I'm fine with, the top 3 group of 5 or whatever, what have you. Like if you're going to expand it, let some other people in. And if the 9th or the 10th ranked Power 5 school is upset that they didn't get in the playoffs, okay, that's great, because that keeps the regular season even more important for those teams that missed out. And it's like, gosh, we were so close. And it turns out that third loss did keep you out of it.
Yeah. Where was I going to go with this? So in terms of the playoff, yeah, I just think that we're headed toward what you're talking about, Tony, in regards to we have nationalized all these conferences, but then they'll be so large they have to break down into subcategories that will once again regionalize the sport. In regards to where I was headed with this poll vote, and again, if we see the top 4 eventually make the playoff, then that will be a first ever, certainly in these 9 years, and that'll be a first ever of all time that the top 4 will finish the top 4. So there will be other teams in the playoffs, most likely, unless this is a historic year of AP voting accuracy. So, number 1, Georgia, I have no issue with them being number 1. I don't have any issue with Ball State being number 1 or, Kansas State being number 1. People can vote for whatever they want. Nobody's played a game. So it really doesn't matter to me who's number 1 and who's number 25. There are all sorts of different theories as to why teams should be placed where they are and what's justified. I don't think any of it's justified, because it's all just based on reasonable opinion, based on how good these teams are or were last year and what the projection should be to this year. I think we should keep in mind that there's not been a team win a national championship 3 consecutive years until I think going back to the 1930s. I think it was Minnesota back in the mid 30s that won 3 consecutive national championships. So from a probability standpoint, the odds are against Georgia. However, I get the number 1 vote. They are the 2-time defending national champions. They've proven that they can lose half their team to the NFL and still win another national championship. They do have an easy schedule that is pretty much going to give them entry into the playoff without breaking a sweat, first and foremost. So once you make the playoff, you're 1 of 4. So I get all the number 1 votes for Georgia. On the other hand, I think it's easy to see that, with a couple breaks not going their way the last 2 years, one against Alabama being a couple wide receivers not in the game against them, Jamison Williams and John Mechie, and then the Marvin Harrison situation and a myriad of other things connected to that. They may not be the national champions. I know Georgia fans don't want to hear that, but I'm not trying to take away your national championships, but you were quite fortunate in both scenarios.